back to the tree generator thing. I've got Emacs up here, but I gotta be careful not to start doing this project in Emacs. That's not the idea. I have to work on it in 4coder. So, okay, the way I used to do this actually was I would get this. I have to remember because I haven't done this in a while. So I would get my debug instance of 4coder up first. And then I would switch to this for like the building and stuff, right? But let me see when I run this, what's the situation we're at. Oh, that is so cool. I remember all this now. Okay, so this right here toggles the brown lines, or the outer lines. Let's see, that is the tree without any culling of the branches. This is with culling, and it's showing blue wherever a branch is blocking another branch from growing. Okay, there's the tree once you add in width, which is kind of messed up. Maybe I want to work on that next. When I say it's kind of messed up, I mostly mean like it's not like this angle here seems messed up. I think I'm not using a very smart way of picking where to put these things down yet, and I need to get smarter about how I'm doing that somehow. And this I assume is for regrowing the tree. Yes, cool. Which is kind of a nice thing to have. Let's see, angles. That right there is messed up. Like that shouldn't be blocking. There's still like collision bugs all over the place that I should really figure out with these segments. Like right here, can you see that those branches there are missing incorrectly, and like this branch, none of these should be blocking anything, right? There's nobody who should be missing here, and yet there's just like random spots here and there where certain guys are blocking other things. There, right? Nothing should actually be colliding. Yet all of these branches are missing. There's one missing here and one missing here, and like these blue lines don't even correspond to places near missing branches, so there's like some kind of weirdness still. So I'm going to have to say that that's the first most unacceptable thing that I'm seeing, is that should all get worked. I can't keep moving forward with segment messed up, so I think that maybe that's where I want to start, is why is there all sorts, there's all sorts of problems. You see there's even more random stuff. I think maybe some of these should actually be blocking, like, so that might not be a good fair test, but this certainly is, and it's messed up. So that's what I'm going to start with. Alright, Emacs, you're not actually relevant. I'm going to launch 4coder. Oh shoot. You know what? I may have lied. I was in the middle of a change that I can't actually... Okay. So, I forgot that yeah. So that might mean a change in plans is in order. I advertised that we'd be working on the tree, but there's an issue with 4coder that I really can't press on with this. Like, I can't think of any way that I can run it right now, unless I were to just open up one of the, like, the last release build. Okay, so I'll put that option on the table. So do I either open up my last release build that I released on Patreon and run from that, since that one works, so we can do the tree stuff, which is what I was planning and hoping to do today? Or do you want to see me debugging this issue, or not even debugging, finishing this part of 4coder? Do you want me to work on 4coder, which was not what I advertised, but sticks a little bit more true to the original rules of this project, which is that I have to use 4coder as it is. I'll let some people give me some thoughts on what they wanna see. Do I use an old version, or do I work on 4coder instead of the tree? Yep, Miblo's got the right list there. Options 1 and 2. Yeah, somebody set up a straw poll so I can see what you all think. I'll leave this up to the chat because I could go either way. The thing is, this isn't really a bug, it's just an unfinished thing. Like, I'm working on a thing right now so that I can make it really easy for me to port stuff around, and it's not done. And I wasn't, like, it's kind of dumb that I thought I could even do the tree today, because I can't without it being done. And I knew when I was making my to-do list this morning for 4coder that I needed to do this before I could use it, and I just didn't, like, connect the dots there. So, yeah. It's either work on a pretty hefty little part of 4coder. It's not a bug fix. It's more than that, in case that wasn't clear. Like, the whole rendering thing is kind of being abstracted around in a different way so that I can port it more easily. Let's see. Alright, I see 4 votes. I don't know if there's still more coming in. But I'll give it one more minute. I see 5 votes. I see 6 votes. Alright, well, it's pretty much unanimous. Everyone's looking for me to work on 4coder. That might be everyone in the chat. It's pretty much up to the viewer number now. There's possibly one viewer, but that could just be a bot, you know? I don't know, does Handmade Hero bot and Instabot, do those guys know how to vote on straw poll? Oh, well, it's been another minute. We got 1 vote for opening the latest release build of 4coder, but I think the majority is kind of work on 4coder situation. So I think that's what I'll do. Okay, so in that case, let me catch you up on where I am. So I started working on port stuff. Well, the buffer experiment was really interesting, and it's not done. I have to do like another round where I work on optimizations and stuff. But for the base round, it kind of came to the result that I would do gap buffer. That I'm going to switch to using a gap buffer. Right now, 4coder isn't switched to a gap buffer yet, but the gap buffer was my favorite, I think, from the first round. And So the next thing I have to do is work on some optimizations here and there, and then I want to test trying to do batch edits, and like there's some things I can. There's like two different types of optimizations. There's buffer specific things, and then like sort of just across the board things I could do, uh, which might not affect the relative speeds too much, or it might not. They might not scale together, but they would all shrink by an equal amount, or maybe they would scale. It's not hard to know, but right now the gap buffer is my favorite, so I'm gonna try to optimize the other ones and see if I can make them worth it. Um, Over the gap buffer, but it's going to be pretty hard because there's, if you've already got something where it's pretty complex and then to make it better you have to optimize more, it's going to be a bit more complex. At some point you're trading in a lot of complexity to get all that performance when you already had pretty easy performance on the gap buffer. So we'll see what I decide after round 2, but for now I just don't have energy for that. I had enough buffer stuff, so I wanted to work on porting. And when I looked into porting, the issue became that I can pretty easily like just set up an SDL layer or something. But after I spent a couple days on that, and I even sort of tweeted the results of that, but I wasn't really happy with that. Like SDL is missing a lot of features, and it was hard to get SDL2 working correctly. Like I was using SDL 1.2 because that was easier to get working, and then that wasn't really a good idea, and I tried looking how to get 2.0 working, but I couldn't even get it working, even though it has some of the features I want. So, it's ultimately I decided that I was going to try to just talk to the X manager directly. I'll just do the xlib stuff. So I was looking at what I needed to do that, and I decided I wanted to abstract rendering more than I had before. In order to abstract rendering, I switched back to working on Windows, and there's a few things I've actually done. For one thing, I'm now, actually right now I'm working on my DLL reader, which is another little thing, but the point of that and the whole thing going on is that, yes, I don't need this right now. Let's see, who do I want? I want app, Win32. Pector, yeah, 4coder is my personal project. I might sell it when it depends on if it turns out to be good enough to sell or if I just want to give it away. Right now I'm running a Patreon to get support for it, so maybe I'll just always do something kind of like that, like a donate situation. I don't know for sure what I'll do with it when it's done. Depends on how good I can make it. Experiment I do not need. 4coder test main. That's for the buffer experiment. Don't need that. Don't need this. Okay, so let's see if everything is building right now. It might not be because I haven't built Win32. Okay, it's building. So this is what I have to do to build now. I'm actually building a DLL and a Win32 layer separately, kind of like Handmade Hero does. I'm not doing it for loop lab code editing or anything like that. But that DLL doesn't really link to anybody. So that it only does a couple of exports. It exports 2 functions to here, and I could even get that down to 1 if I worked on it. And that's really all it's got to do. The issue with that, though, is that I don't want the OpenGL stuff on this side, because otherwise it's linking to OpenGL. And for some of the things I want to do, I want to say that maybe OpenGL, maybe you don't even rely on the fact that you're rendering by OpenGL. I just wanted to completely abstract that. And I decided the easy way for me to do that would be to move rendering into the platform layer, actually. I think Handmade Hero does that a little differently. I think it's got 3 layers, but I'm just saying rendering is a part of platform. Which maybe you can get more like independence there, and then you can reuse the same set of renderers on multiple platforms, but that's not what I'm going for at the moment. That's where I am, as I'm trying to get that set up, and I have to remind myself where that is. Because the other thing I started doing is I started working on the a DLL loader, because once you've got DLLs with no imports, they're not dependent on anyone else, then it's not a huge leap to say you'll write your own DLL reader that works on any platform. And then I can, just focus on getting the DLL working on one platform and just running it on the other platform once you get it to load in correctly. As long as you do, I don't think they're the same architecture though, so you probably have to build them differently anyway, and I probably have to make a SO loader as well, so that either way you build it, it can load either thing, is what I'm thinking I'll do. Helper. Okay. Okay, so there's a few changes I've been thinking about that I want to make today, and if I'm going to work on this, to get things working. So, yeah, the helper here is app side code, and one thing I want to do is I want to get font pointers out of the app side code, so you just refer to fonts by an ID, and then it'll be the rendering layer's job to actually keep a set of fonts that are available and just give you an ID to them. So rectangle, gradient. Yeah, so what I want to do right now... Okay, yeah, so I made some dumb choices at one point, so I'm going to undo some of these real quick. I was thinking I would do, like, all the text in batches to try to get down the memory size. But then I realized that I made a mistake in my calculations about how much memory it was going to take, and that it wasn't as bad as I thought to just do it the easy way. So we're going to start by switching back to Glyphs. So we'll render by glyph instead of by text. Alright. Push. Okay, great. Now, let's see. That means that I want to make sure real quick that this is set up. Yeah, so the next thing I should do right now before I get this, what I really want to do is get this down to a different thing, but for now what I need is character to render bees. I need a color, and then eventually I'll get this down to being a U16 as well, or at least to be some kind of 2-byte identifier. But in the meantime, let's see if there's any errors from that. No, there aren't. That's a little weird. Now the rendering helper, draw glyph, we'll probably prefer that. But why isn't it showing me any errors then? Text. Oh, these still believe in that way of life. Okay. Okay. Right, so I went through and started working on that, and then I decided today that I wasn't going to do it, so there we go. X to Y. Color to color. Font ID to font. Character to character. Okay. So that's pretty good. That's pretty good. These want to switch back to glyph now. These want to switch back to glyph. Okay. Alright, so now the thing I don't have is the actual, like, render stage, right? I can push on all these things that I want to render onto a push buffer, but I never actually do any rendering of that, so... Okay. And this is where it gets a little interesting. First of all, we want to see rendering.h, render... There we go. Alright, so I want to make a change because I've determined that I want to stop doing that, so there we go. From I32 to byte is a problem, right? Sure. Okay. So now when I launch the rendering, I have like a sort of a cursor in there that starts at the push buffer, and we have a sort of end cursor, or cursor end, if you will, which is cursor plus the target size. And then it's just like, look, while the cursor is still less than the cursor end, then what I want to do is get a type. Now, where? Yes, type. Get the render piece header. Take the current cursor and grab the type out. Why? Okay, so Mr. Miyagi is asking why I use a for loop instead of a while loop. And the answer is, basically, it's exactly the same thing if you write this, and it like doesn't save you any typing, but the thing is for me at least, it's like a personal thing where I have errors more often in a while loop than in a for loop. And that's because if I get to a point where, you know, my while loop doesn't exactly fit the format of a for loop at first, but then later on it does, I leave it in a while loop, and then like I'll forget to do my increments like in a clean way. So by setting it up like this, it just sets me up so that I'm just, if I ever realize that there's a nice clean increment stage, I can just drop it in, and if not, that's fine too. Right, so I decided that since this is just a while, another way to write while, and half the time my whiles turn into fors in the future once I've cleaned the code up, and that during that stage I cause myself bugs by forgetting to do the increment, that this just saves me bugs. when that happens. Because when I see that, I don't forget to fix the increment for some odd reason. So it's just a personal thing that I discovered helps me not have little stupid bugs once in a while. I guess the only reason to do it is if you make the same mistake I do when you switch from a while loop to a for loop. Thank you, chat, for catching my typo. Gradient. Glyph. Actually, I'm an idiot. Monoglyph. I always forget that I need to add in scopes because I'm going to introduce a pointer on each of these, so they need their own scopes. Yeah, the only thing this doesn't fix is the do loop, right? If I ever want to do it, I don't find myself doing do loops too often. Like, there's a couple of do loops in my code, like, I can think of, I know there's two in one function that both are basically doing the same thing. For the most part, I don't find myself writing do loops. Yeah, sorry if you can. I was gonna work on the tree generator in 4coder, but now I'm working on 4coder in Emacs because there was I forgot that the current state of 4coder isn't actually usable, and I asked if people would rather see the tree in an old version of 4coder or no tree at all. And so you missed the vote, but that's how it turned out. Okay, so at each step here, I can get a pointer, which is sort of to one of these things, right? So like this needs a rectangle pointer, which is just, okay, so after I get that, I can do cursor equals cursor plus the size of this, right? And now all of these are kind of going to do the exact same thing. There's not a super great way to do it. The fact that I have to declare this, I'd kind of like to macro this so that I don't have to do that every time, but it's not a simple... So what I could do is say that I want render piece header, right? And then I just do this step. And then I do the advance, and then this is just header type, right? And so the question is, how do I turn this into a macro that works well? Is that, wait, that might not even be I might just be overthinking that actually. Yeah, so it's like, extract type struct s, and then it's s pointer cursor, semicolon cursor plus equals size of s, right? So then I can just do extract struct render piece header, right? And then down here it's extract struct render piece rectangle. And after this function, I want to undef that because that's function specific. I don't need that elsewhere. That's like right on the edge of where I'm not going to let that be one line, so I'll bump it down. Alright, so we need a couple of rectangles. Right here we need gradients. Down here we need glyphs. Alright, so now we've got something extracting all of our pointers just right. And then it's just a matter of reading out of the structs that we see and doing the work. So, if I'm drawing a rectangle, now what I've done is I saved my old... Let me pull up a rendering.cpp on both sides. I saved the old version of this code just right here. So any of these that I'm actually keeping, this function I'm keeping, so I'll put you right there, draw private draw rectangle. I don't know if it'll inline that or not, but I wish it would. Another thing I could do is just manually inline it, actually. Let's try that for now. So like there. That's how I draw a rectangle, for example. Right? Now I gotta make sure I'm getting my colors from the right. Yeah, the only problem with that is that yeah, I want this, I think, because that makes it so I don't have to repeatedly do the pointer. I don't want to put rectangle arrow in front of rect 8 times there and target twice and blah 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 blah. Or it might not be target, but color would need it once, and other things might get more annoying, so we'll do it that way. Target real 32 is now F32, by the way. Target rectangle, I believe, has just a rect version. Rendering.h. Yep, it's got rect in there, so there's the rectangle color. Alright. So that's acceptable to me for now. Alright, so let me switch to rendering again. Outline. Let's see, so yeah, that's happening because OpenGL requires weirdness with your rectangles. If you want, like, lines and rectangles don't have the same rule about where the pixels line up, so in line mode you gotta do that. Draw set color. It kind of makes sense though. I'm not blaming. I'm gonna say that that's not a fault in OpenGL necessarily, because it's kind of a confusing issue. Okay, gradient. Two-corner clipped. Not sure why it has that name. Everything is clipped. Maybe I just was being extremely lazy. I was probably being extremely lazy, because I'm almost always being extremely lazy. At one point, I explicitly passed a clip rectangle to everything. It's a bad idea. Bad, bad, bad. You want your clipping to actually work more like a stack, I think. That's how makes it work now. At least in a GUI, because you have, like, you enter into a panel, you want to clip to that panel, and then you go back out to the big thing and you enter into this panel. And you never want one panel to contain a panel that goes outside of it anyway, so it's like, it kind of works out. Yep. And then that's just a matter of private. Draw a gradient. To corner, not going to need that anymore. But you need to say F32 gradient. Rectangle rect. That's gradient to you. And then there's gradient, I think left color. Or, let's see. I don't remember. It'll save me time if I look, I think. Left color. Right color. Okay. Draw gradient piece type glyph. Okay, so now I need to find my draw glyph non-mono. Give me the non-mono version. Draw glyph. Ooh. I have to add a new field to the draw glyph, at least in the mono case. We'll get back to that. Character, X, Y, and the color. Okay. Alright. And then I want to do the mono version. Well, that's okay. Right, so that's what I wanted to look at. The mono situation is a little weird because actually in the mono case, I have this parameter that says how wide do you want the advance of this mono font to be, of this, when we render this, how wide do you want it to be? Because one thing I was doing was saying, like, sometimes you take a, there's two different things. First of all, the way you align the character is different and when you're in mono versus non-mono. So, when you're in mono, you want, if you use a monospace font, you flip a thing that says use the mono renderer all the time, and you let the advance be the natural mono advance of that font. But say you have a non-mono font, but you want to render a bunch of hexadecimal numbers in mono space. You don't just want to say what's the largest width in this font, because that's going to be like capital W, which is way too big. So what I do is I say pick a width. I pick my width by, I have a function that you just pass in a string. It looks at all the characters and finds the widest character there, so you can pass in the string 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 0, and it'll pick whichever one of those is widest, and you make that the advance of the hex, and then you can use that as your advance. And so then when you render this, you tell it how much you want it to advance at each step. And the truth is, we don't need that parameter too often, right? Like, we don't really need that parameter. I don't use that parameter. I only use that parameter when I have a non-mono font that I'm rendering in a mono way. Any other time I'm using it shouldn't be necessary. Although I think that I just basically always use it in certain places. But basically, I want to have mono and a mono with special advance, right? So that's what I'll do. I'll actually keep both of these. And the reason I want that is I don't want to add an extra field when you're rendering in mono mode, right? When you're rendering in mono mode, you don't need to have an extra 4 bytes per character in the push buffer, or an extra 4 bytes per character in the push buffer would be a huge waste for rendering. So instead what I do is, instead what I'll do is I'll just say you have another type of mono, like you have mono, and then you'll have like mono underscore advance, right? Like with advance or something like that. So mono with advance will go through this. And mono without advance will go through this. Okay. So this one, that shouldn't have an extra line there. This one is for right here. Normal glyph mode of mono. It's actually like exactly the same as this, isn't it? It is a copy of that, just with the mono appended here. Oh, and that private needs to go there. Which means the private also needs to go up here. Oops, what'd you do? There we go. Private. Yeah, font. Private. Okay. Private. Draw glyph mono. Private draw gradient. You don't like what? Okay. Draw gradient takes its colors in that form, you say. Was that a particularly smart choice on my part, I wonder? Well, no matter. At this point, I'm definitely switching it to this. Well, maybe not. Okay. I think either way I do it, I have to unpack eventually, so I'll just do like a unpack color 4 right there. And right there. Because at some point I have to do the unpack. Because I don't really want to store a vec4 for each color, because that's 4 times bigger. Maybe I'm overthinking the memory situation, but it does come out to be about it grows pretty quick because there's a few thousand things in there, a few thousand items to be rendered. Do you have the same problem with color, or do you have a different problem? You want me to say font ID, right? Because in the future, what's actually going to happen is we're going to take a font pointer and we'll have to deduce it from a font ID. Right now, the font ID just is the pointer. But I'll go ahead and insert that concept now so that it's ready to go soon. Alright. So we're getting there. I want to go ahead again and add in that other idea of mono with advance piece glyph advance, and the difference with this one is simply that you also specify the advance that you want. And then up here, I'll add a new type. And right here, I'll handle that type. Glyph with advance. There we go. And then it's just right here, I need to specify to the function that I want to use a particular advance, namely this advance. There we go. Okay. Nice. So well, I'm gonna see. It shouldn't run right now because I haven't actually done anything to do the linking that needs to happen. I don't think, but I need to see what is exactly breaking. Now that I think the code is there that needs to be there, but I don't remember where, like, what the break is actually. Okay, so we aren't linking in. Yeah, we need to link in all of the render functions right there. Okay, 1142 in the Win32 layer. Alright, so push clip equals I believe that's all there is to it. Pop clip push piece. Font load, I'm not sure what the name of that is actually, but I think that's right. Push piece, pop clip. Yeah, so that was all good. It didn't have any problem there. Push buffer. Well, yeah, it's null. Draw push piece. Oh, it's not asserting until afterwards because it doesn't know what size the resulting piece is gonna be. That's fine. Okay, so I need to initialize the target's push buffer as well, which is just gonna be some system memory like everything else. System get memory. And I came to the conclusion today that what I need is like 32 kilobytes if all my compression has worked correctly. Of my original calculation, we assumed that I was like not doing variable width render pieces, which is bad because the gradient took up a ton of space, being a rectangle with two colors. And a type variable, right? So that took up a ton of space, and also I calculated that there'd be like 1 million characters on the screen. And I was like, that can't be right, and I redid it, and I was just way off, right? I just somehow made some bad assumption about something somewhere. I didn't really walk it through. It just seemed like the numbers were bogus when I rethought about it. So 10 million characters on the screen isn't really going to happen. Now, what I do have to watch out for is the fact that rectangles are often rendered off-screen by the GUI stuff, What I should probably do is go in there and be smarter about not rendering stuff when I'm off screen, like not pushing onto the buffer if it goes outside of the clip completely, which wouldn't be too hard to do. Or even making the code that's generating the pushes in the first place smarter so that it stops. Alright, so it's running. It's not right. This is all wrong. But I can at least, ask questions about what happens when it runs now, because it looks like it's gotten to a state where it's doing stuff. Is it in this loop? It appears to be, so it might be that... Well, it could always be that I'm not launching the render function. Let's break right here. And I want to say win32 vars target. I bet you have... Yeah, so you have the max is 0, which is kind of weird. That's got to change. That shouldn't really be a big deal, though. I'm going to walk through one app step, and we'll see if anything really weird is going on that's preventing it from pushing stuff onto the push buffer. Oof. Okay. I see stars now. Whoa. Oh, okay. I think I'm back. So, that's fine. That's fine. Do we get to a point where we like render? I might have messed up at some point some other important things. Actually, now that I think about it, I've been just kind of going nuts, getting things into a pretty odd state in the code right now. It's actually absurd that I thought I could do this. Like, it was running like Saturday, I had it running, but it hasn't really been running since then, and I didn't even occur to me how not ready it was for working on the tree. Alright, resize messages, don't care. Font changes, don't care. Here we go. Here's where the rendering kicks in. Okay. So, are you going to redraw? Yes. Okay, so it goes into redraw mode. And yeah, did that work? I don't know. Okay, here's the first thing that we can definitely take a look and see some stuff about what's going on now. So target, did we get clip top is 0? That's wrong because we pushed onto the clip just now, so that isn't a good sign. But let's see what happens when we try to push this piece. So we build up this piece, right? It's got a rectangle in there that covers half the screen. It's got a color that makes a background color. We step into there. I don't think the size actually ever got incremented in here. Look at that. Yeah, it's not actually... well... what? Alright, so this function's a little messed up. Let's look at line 54 on rendering. Okay, so the first thing it needs to do is it comes in here, and it needs to do render piece header push buffer equals piece.header, right? And I know compiler is going to complain to me that there is no such thing, and that's okay. I'm going to get around to it, okay? So just calm down, compiler. Stop getting ahead of me. S is going to be like S pointer target push buffer equals X target push buffer plus equals size of S, right? So that way I'm actually incrementing the size like I'm supposed to be. And then I can just write put struct put a render piece header, specifically this one. That's a lot better. Actually, that's totally wrong. I don't want to increment the push buffer pointer. That's just absurd. I want to increment the size and plus that in there. Okay. So that's probably a big part of the problem that we were seeing with the black screen. Pushing rectangles. There we go. There's pushing render piece gradients. There we go. And there's putting glyphs. There we go. And of course, I haven't actually added one, but what I need is another one of these for the advanced version. Oh, that should be glyph. That should be this with the advance. This should be glyph advance. Alright, now there's a couple of errors, so you go ahead and let me know now. I'll take care of them. Okay, so instead of type, we want render piece header. So basically the combined, what am I doing? Header. The combined thing just puts a header in and then unions all of them, which is how I was originally storing it. But I kept this around so that I can specify them in a single format. And then it decodes and figures out how to lay it out and pack things together so that it doesn't have leftover space from the union if it doesn't need it. The other thing it's going to complain about is the missing glyph advance, so let's just get the jump on that issue right there. Alright, so now it's like, whoa, man, the types don't exist. You said there were types and now they're gone. So I just need to go let them know that the type has moved into the header. So don't you worry. And that's where a code transform would have been very, very useful. It would have just fit in perfectly. Okay. Alright, so the next thing we need is we need there's one thing I need to do, which is in Win32. After the app does a step, there's this question of whether or not it did, or we need to do a redraw. And Win32 redraw screen has become more complex now. Before we do the GL flush, we actually have to do the Win32 vars target. No, we need to do the launch rendering on the Win32 vars target, like so, and then we can take its size back to 0 after that is done. And then we can GL flush swap buffers. Nice. Okay. Are we back to working? Ignoring this guy, ignoring this guy. Ho ho, that looks kind of like what it used to look like. That is so cool, guys. I can't explain. Oh my gosh. If that's... what? There's no way. There's no way that that's all working. That's kind of nuts. Okay, I need to prove to myself. I don't believe it. I don't believe it's actually working. That doesn't seem real. So I'm going to prove it to myself, or prove that it's not working. I'm looking for Win32 redraw screen. Okay. There we go. So I triggered a redraw. Go into launch rendering. It's like totally walking through and doing all the work, and it just kind of lined up and worked. That's kind of nuts. I can't believe that, really, but there it is. Here's a question. How much did we use? 65, well, that's in hexadecimal. 25,908. Alright, so my calculations were actually fairly accurate. 25,908. I predicted 25,000 roughly in total, but that might have been a little bit small actually, because that was on full screen and it's not on full screen, obviously, so my calculations were a little bit too conservative, but I did allow it 32 kilobytes. I'll go to full screen real quick and see how big that gets. It might be too big to fit in the push buffer at that point. We'll see. Yeah, so that doesn't fit. That's fine. So, I was kind of surprised. I don't know how I got such a small number. It's hard to say. I keep going back and forth on that math. I might have been more right in the original situation than I realized. But anyways, 32 kilobytes isn't apparently going to cut it. But in the past, I said that like 1 megabyte might be enough. Full screen. Basic.cpp. Yeah, so that's all fitting. And the tricky thing about the fixing the size of the push buffer is that you don't know for sure, do you, how much, like how big it's gonna be really, because like with smaller characters you can fit way more things on the screen at a time. And just to be absolutely sure, like I'll open a second one. Right, so that seems like it's kind of handling though. It's all full speed. So, alright, so that's what we did today. Should I keep going? I could keep going. I've only been at it for an hour. Well, Handmade Heroes back. I could do like half an hour maybe. So there's a question in my mind, which is, why is it not doing syntax coloring right now? Scalpel. App target. Yeah, the scalpel's at 0, so why am I not getting syntax coloring, people? It's all using the default color, so I don't think that's a problem with the rendering stuff that we just did. I think it's a problem with the thing is somehow got screwed up. Like I said, I was going nuts in there. Since Saturday, it's been kind of like, I've been like a cowboy programmer, like, just going off, doing whatever, making a mess for other people to clean up, for my future self to regret, etc., right? So I've been like a cowboy, going all cowboy in there for now, sort of wild carding around. But, So somewhere in here, I may have screwed some stuff up. Scalpel. It's definitely doing the golden array. But the question is, did I... Oh, you know what I might have done? I might have... Okay. I'm looking for the Relex job. File... First Lex parallel. There's that. Does that ever get called, I wonder? I might have, like, taken it out when I thought that I was going to get the whole porting thing done in a day. I'm like right... Why is my code just right there? It's just like sitting right here ready to go. It's kind of weird. Anyway, here we go. I'm going to open a file and see if it launches the Lex job. It doesn't launch the Lex job, people. It didn't. Lex job not launched. So, if that's the case, first Lex parallel gets launched by what? Okay, so it only gets launched there? Really? I thought there were two places that it got launched. Okay, Relex parallel then. Relex parallel happens... What? What is this? Okay, file create from... Yes, yes. Measuring that stuff. There's the undo redo stuff, which only happens if it's not super locked. Did I like just delete it at some point? Is that what's going on here? Okay, so the file right now has no tokens or anything. Fine. That's fine. Let's see if we can find where it's supposed to be happening. Freeze the raw file. Adds it to a table. Here's your target file. We got the target file. Here's the new view. File view init. Yeah, that's fine. It's in the moment when it binds to a view that it actually does it, because that's when it decides whether or not... Yeah, that's a little bit of an odd system, don't you think, Alan? Well, let's take a look. Set file. Okay. Open hook. Goes in here, that's fine. Ends temporary memory if file first Lex parallel. Created file, yes. Tokens exist, no. Interesting. Target file doesn't seem to think that its tokens exist necessarily. Alright, so I want to watch that again, because that definitely happened in the open hook, where something went wrong. Oh wait, I don't care about that. Get out of here. Oh, I already missed it. I have to do it again. There we go. Okay. It's coming through here, and then it's all like, hey, I want to do an open hook, and then it pushes some parameters. One of them is Lex has CPP, treat as code is 0. Less than 16, shift 20. Yeah, it's way less than that. You got a file name. Get extent file name basic.cpp. Alright, it might have gone wrong in there, which is really weird because it didn't used to go wrong in there. Oh, okay. I might know what's going on. We might need to let's try rebuilding super. Ah, okay. Yeah, so I haven't rebuilt the super DLL for a while, so I'm gonna just delete it rather than fix it, because that will make the problems go away. And now I can just sort of open up. Okay. So, what went wrong, I wonder? Did it find DLL still, I wonder? Because that might have happened. I have a theory on how that could have gone down, so... Hello, Lost Santer. Welcome to the stream. Let's see. I have a theory on how that could have happened, so how about I go over here where I had some okay, right there. Let's open up the thingy. If open... Yeah, it's still loading a DLL. It's loading a different one. I know what's happening. It found the DLL that I had in here for testing purposes. Okay. Lost Enter, what I'm working on right now is I'm working on my project called 4coder. You can see the description in the bottom. Basically, and there's like a link to the blog. You should check it out if you're super interested. You can find it here at 4coder.net. And it's right at this very moment what I'm working on is getting some new rendering stuff working, and now there's the tokens. Okay, so I'm trying to get the tokens working, and I just got it to stop loading the customization DLL, which I think is not built properly anymore. And now OpenHook is pointing into myself, which is good because it's using the default hook. And then if it plays, ta-da! Alright, so that means that I need to look into the ooh, there's a bug here with tabs too. So it's like the rendering system isn't giving any width to tabs, like the buffer rendering system, not the... There's like two different layers of rendering that happen there. It's kind of weird. I wonder if that's a bad thing. I don't know. Anyway, I'll have to do profiling someday to find out. I'll probably end up collapsing the buffer rendering stuff once I don't need the abstract version. But anyway, yeah, that's obviously a bug. But ignoring that, because those tabs should be four spaces wide. Ignoring that, that means that I need to figure out what's going wrong with the custom DLL stuff and get it building correctly again. Because it was loading some bogus stuff and having a problem. Lost Enter, the rendering stuff that I was working on today was I wanted to abstract the rendering out of the main app, because what I'm basically working on is the whole app itself. And when I say app, it's short for application. Let's see. Build, right? So here's the program I'm running, and the first thing it does, one of the first things it does anyway, is load this DLL called 4ed app. This is a new thing that I've just started working on, so even people who have seen demos of this before won't have seen that. But the nice thing about that DLL is that contains most of the code that like makes it run, and I'm working on making my own DLL loader so that that will be cross-platform. Like all you have to do is build for the right architecture, and that DLL literally has 0 outside links, right? And that way, you compile it once, and it works on every machine of that architecture, regardless of the platform. But to make that happen, I had to pull rendering I had to abstract rendering into the platform layer, which is what happened today. Via a push buffer. Now, to answer Valbus's question, where do you see the keyword literal? Literal. 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 Valbus, where did you see the keyword literal? I'm not sure what you're seeing. Alright, so now what we need to do is I need to add building super to my build build script real quick. I wonder why that would be. You have a build super right there. I wonder if I can just do this. Cannot open source file 4coder custom.cpp. Oh, I know what you're talking about, Valbus. Let me track that down. Let's see. Custom CPP. Literal. So the way the literal works, you can see there's a define for it right there. The way the literal works is you can pass in a literal string, and it separates it out into the string and the size of the string, right? Because most of my APIs, you pass a string and its length together. But if you want to do that for a literal string, that gets like really annoying. You either have to count out manually and keep the number in sync, or you like use a variable outside and store it, blah blah blah. It's annoying. So instead what I do is instead of passing two parameters, I just say literal this literal string, and then it expands that out into a string and its length. So that's what that is. Yeah, this is a it's a code editor. That's the idea of the project. So right now I can't get it to do my build super from. It can't find 4coder custom CPP. What are you talking about? What are you talking about? You can't open that code. It doesn't make sense. Custom. I'm going to give it one more shot at trying to build in Emacs, and then we're going to switch to just trying to do it without the Emacs error finder. So, I'm trying to call my build super, and the problem is it comes in there. What if I don't do it in here? What if I just say, you know, oh shit. There's Emacs crashing. What the hell is it doing? Okay. It's like a daily routine. Emacs crashes once a day for me. At least. Maybe twice. I don't know how that's possible. Like, it doesn't make any sense because no one else even has this problem. So I don't know if there's a problem with Emacs or like I set it up wrong or what's going on there, but it happens. Alright, so there's the custom and I'm looking in the build all situation, and I also want to look into the build super situation, and I'll just have it do all of this work. Right, so instead of calling the batch file because it's not working, I'll just do what the batch file does. Yes. Run. There we go. Idiot. Okay. I closed it that time because it no, I'll clear up the literal thing again in a second. Unsigned short, save, run it again. Yes. Oh shoot. Okay. So I have to do something a little bit annoying because this is going to be looking at the build version. Custom.h. Yeah, that's not lovely. Well, what I could do is just say that I'm not going to do that for now. Okay, that's a plan. misc build all. Do not do the copy. Okay, that way we don't perpetually overwrite. Unsigned short. Oh, I see. It's highlighting it in blue. Yeah, there's a few things. Event is also a keyword in Visual Studio, or at least it was when I was using it. There's a few other things I do, or that I saw. Cannot convert from bind target to short. apptarget.cvp. App target. Get bindings. Set extra font. Huh. Those shouldn't. Forehead app target shouldn't care about that. Oh. Let me take a look. I know what that is. I'm not build. I need to like clear out my old builds because they're not like in use anymore. So it's trying to export the wrong things, I think. Yes. Haha. Alright, so everything's back except for this little tab bug, but everything's back to good now. So if I had just done that this morning, of course, then I couldn't have done the stuff that I did before that, which was working on the DLL loader. But if I had done that this morning, we could have had a tree generator, but instead we got this. So anyway, thank you everybody for coming. Looks like 4coder's back to working, and next time there will be a tree generator if it's still working. Or maybe I'll do... Pete, let me know if you want to see DLL loading, because I'm kind of like, it's a tough thing that I'm muddling through, and maybe you want to see some of that. But anyway, we're done for today, so thanks for coming to see the stream, and see you guys later.